willing to give up our unlawfully acquired possessions of every kind. But see, the Negroes haven't woken up yet. They don't want to give up their bling. They don't want to give up the false wealth and position. And I mean, look at us as a people. We'll say Condoleezza Rice, Secretary of State. Before her, first black woman Secretary of State. Before her, it was, what's his name? Colin Powell. He was Secretary of State. Andrew Young, he was an ambassador. You understand? You see Jesse Jackson every almost other day on some channel doing something. You have Sharpton running around. So people say, hey, look, we're achieving something. O.J. Simpson thing should have taught you something. The Rodney King situation has taught you something. The Amadou Diallo situation should have taught you something. The Sean Bell situation should have taught you something. And there's so many more who are unnamed. You understand? Unnameable victims of this. Yovas, we must become willing to give up our unlawfully acquired possessions of every kind. You see, this is why the word must be taught properly, not just begging and asking, oh, we need money to do this, oh, we need money to that. No, we need to deal with our divine heritage. You understand? And that means to teach, to preach, and to practice this word. You understand? Then we'll come to that state that we would willingly give up our unlawfully acquired possessions of every kind, and we restore fourfold to those whom we have cheated. You see, this will stop the black on black crime. This is a solution for the black on black crime. All these little seminars, all the kind of stuff, it's nice. It's good to meet a couple of people, to, as they call it, hobnob and everything else. But it's not the way. It's not Yah's way. It's man-made teachings. You understand? Inserting themselves instead of Christ. Man-made teachings becoming antichrist. You understand? So the meaning of Luke 19, 9 and 10 is that Yeshua, Jesus Christos, who represents man's demonstration of Christos, redeems every sinning or lost faculty. Every faculty of the Imro, the mind, has its origin in spiritual faith, which is chiefly represented by Abraham, by the principle that we know as Abraham, the father of a multitude, the one source of all the faculties of man. Now let's conclude with this teaching on the calling of the burden to rest and the way to rest. The word says in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, come to me, all who toil, all who labor and are heavily burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Learn from I. For I am meek and lowly in heart. And you all will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden light. Now let's explain this for a moment. First of all, it's the words of Yeshua. You understand? It's the call. It's what's known as the come to me call, the come to I. What Yeshua is now saying. Now, what's the meaning of this? And how does this connect with this true meaning of Aleph and Aleph, the first Hebrew letter? Do you remember the meaning of that Hebrew letter? It has two dual meaning. One is an ox. Secondly, it's leader. We touched on that when we touched on Aleph, Aleph, Alpha, Alpheus, Elephios. You understand? We touched on that in the first three parts of this teaching. Now here in the fourth part of this teaching, we want now like bring it full circle. Bringing it full circle, let's begin to teach on this. First of all, to come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, heavily burdened, and I will give you rest. What does this refer to? This refers not only to the toil of striving to keep the commandments of the law and religious regulations, but also to the toil of struggling, the basic struggling to be successful in any work. In any work that you're about, whatever your work is, you're struggling just to survive, just to make ends meet. You understand? This is what it's referring to. You understand? The labor, not just the spiritual labor, but to your complete, the entirety of your labor in reality. Whoever toils thus is always heavily burdened. Whoever toils like this is always heavily burdened. After the Gita, the Adoni extolled the father, the Ab, acknowledging the Ab's Menged, the Ab's way, the father's way, and declaring the divine Economikos, the divine Megabinet, the divine economy. There's such a thing called divine economy. It means managing the household. And it's going to become one of our expanded teachings, because we really need to understand what God's economy is all about. Because you see, we're trying communist economy, we're trying capitalist economy, but we don't fully understand, and therefore can't act it out, can't manifest God's economikos, his economy. He called this kind of people to come to him for rest. To come to him for rest. And we have to understand what rest really is. To rest from the anxiety of mind, the stress, the uncertainty, the doubt, the fear, the phobia, the worry, the frets, the worries and debts, and all of that, to come to him for rest. Rest refers not only to being set free from the toil or set free from labor and burden under the law or regulation or under any work or responsibility. That's not what the rest is speaking about. But also to perfect peace and full satisfaction in the fullness of it. That you will work your daily, whatever your particular trade or skill is, you understand? But you'll work it knowing you are blessed, because you're not just blessed because you work. You already know you're blessed because you know his word, and you're seeking to live and align yourself with his word. Now it's interesting in the next verse where it says, take my yoke upon you. Now a lot of ones have religiously and studied this and read the part about take my yoke upon you, but haven't made the connections. What do you yoke? What do you yoke? Don't you yoke? Doesn't one yoke, especially in a get environment, a so-called pagan environment, don't you yoke oxen? You yoke oxen, don't you? Remember we studied in the first part, we studied Isaiah. We went through, I call it a brief study of Isaiah, kind of a getting familiar with Isaiah chapter 1. And chapter 1 verse 3, it says, the ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib, but Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider. Let us study this for a moment. The ox.